that info in, and when I hear an echo, of course, that's when we know we're live out there on the YouTubes. It's got that little error, that little line racing across the screen. That info in, and it repeated in my ear hole, so we should be ready. So if you can hear me in the chat room, please do let me know.
All right.
Let me know if you can hear me. Typing on a tiny keyboard. If you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me, it says. And I'm working without Frankie and Annette tonight.
No, Frankie. No, Annette.
What is a gal to do?
I can't seem to do anything but cover this guy's face, so I guess I'll just give up. Whatever.
That's
all right.
Okay.
No, it's not really, but
well. Okay, so I'm let me know if you can hear me. I'm just waiting for folks to let me know. So
yeah.
typey, no, he can't hear me. Okay, so let's see. It's Shayeti. Well, that's just my luck. So hang on. Let's see. And let's see if we're still on the stream. Okay, refresh, please. And let me know. Apparently there's two sides to the server. Not that anyone needs to know, but hey, maybe I can remember that. Let's see. So once I can be heard on the stream,
I just checked again on the stream and you're there.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment here and we're going to switch sources. Let me go back to the screen and go. Here tonight, we have a not often seen experience here at the beautiful historical Marionette Theater. We will take you on a journey through our hallowed halls, our Hall of Fame, if you will. Here in Spuds Flats, we're just but a tiny flea speck of a town. But every now and then, a tour bus breaks down. I don't know, perhaps it has something to do with the spike strips that occasionally get set up. Oh, did I say that, Gertie? That's not very nice. I don't know where you learned that trick, but as they say, she knows a guy. But, you know, we have our bestie Tommy Hash Browns to thank for the gift of these visages, many splendored folks, and they have lend us their signatures. It's kind of like a George Burns film. It's the God Effect.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you hadn't dropped by to see our beautiful shining faces here on the YouTubes, you've got a whole other reason tonight, because yours truly, I'm decked out as, you know, you might see in Elton John's closet, or perhaps Don Knotts on those years that he was on the Three's Company show.
Oh my God, you are channeling Don Knotts. DJ, I didn't think of that until you met. No, you're channeling Don Knotts.
Off my lawn.
Oh, Lordy.
We are here to discuss a film of a birthday boy tonight. And after 50 years in the business, as Entertainment Weekly said, he finally landed a role as a leading man. So it's October and it's fall Oktoberfest. Speaking of our German expatriate friend, Mr. Udo Kier. It's Oktoberfest in that part of the world.
Guess
And,
so.
our barmaid, kinda, Gertie, should be somewhere in the house. Do you think?
Oh, I'm here, believe me.
Well, we'd like to talk about the film tonight. Could you get your little tootsies downstairs there and we can introduce things?
All righty, I'm down. I'm down for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Go. Pat is a formerly flamboyant retired hairdresser who finds himself dusting off his shears when the estate of an old friend comes calling to prepare her for her one final appearance, her memorial. But the two haven't spoken for years, and she was a bigwig with the local conservative politicians. She never even came to his lover's funeral. Will Pat swallow humble pie and accept his laurels? Will his old rival get in the way? Step off at your local thrift store for some clubbing duds. Just be careful about drinking in public. It's time for Swan Song with Udo Kier and Jennifer Coolidge. Take it away, fellas.
What do you get when you take a dash to the silver screen? A pinch of golden oldies and a smidgen of screaming. It's time for Matinee Minutia with your hosts DJ and Toppy.
Toppy, it should be noted that there's a special dedication on the film tonight. The director, Todd Stevens, he's a Buckeye State native, Ohio. This is his third film, and the film is dedicated in memory of the 33 million lost to the AIDS pandemic, including 5 of the director's friends. Michelle Martin lost at the age of 37, Doug Casino, who was 23, Connie Widdowson, who was 26, Pete McAllister, 30, David Canino, 47, and finally, a happy celebration, a dedication to his husband of 35 years, Timo.
Nice. All right.
Okay. So, I think perhaps we'll talk a little about when this came out, because, this is actually one of the most recent films we've talked about.
It sure is. We don't get more recent than this, folks.
No kidding. Let's see. I'm just seeing if I can. Okay, I gotta type something here. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so 2021, and this is the world in 2021. Okay, folks, it was just around the corner from now, or behind the corner, as it were. 2021. So think about this. It was an independent film. Lots of things happened that year. We'll just go through a handful. So in Michigan, the COVID-19 pandemic surpassed 500,000 confirmed cases. That's 500,000 people January that year. Moving along here, let's see. I want to get to some happy news. Texas became the first state to administer 1 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine in January of that year.
Wow.
See, moving on, a few other things here. Let's see. So in January of that year, the Food and Drug Administration approved Cabenuva, a complete regimen for the treatment of HIV/AIDS. So it was a new medication, was approved for HIV/AIDS in January of that year. And in the state of Arizona, in the Southwest there, recreational cannabis sales began. Let's see here. What else do we have? Trying to look for some happy things, perhaps, or at least some good progress. Just a couple of others. Let's see. So the FDA in February of that year, the FDA issued an emergency use authorization for, I'm going to get the name wrong, bamlanivimab, and I'm not making this up, folks, atesivimab. It's a COVID-19 medication that was being developed at the time. So,
What a surprise. 2021 is filled with vaccines. I wonder
uh-huh.
why. I wonder, that's odd. That's peculiar.
Oh, here's something good. In February that year, NASA successfully landed its Perseverance rover on Mars 7 months after its launching. Now, it does take quite a long time to get something to Mars from Earth because,
That's why it's called perseverance.
yes, because the rotation around the sun is actually well, it's kind of like walking into the tide. You gotta go counterclockwise, I guess is what the Simpsons would tell you. The commodes in the south of the equator go.
Um,
Okay, well, maybe one or two other things, and then we'll move on. Let's see. Oh, the U.S. House of Representatives, so Congress, in March of that year, voted 220 to 211 to pass the 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Is a stimulus bill signed into law by President Biden the next day. So, the compensation that many people got during the pandemic, that was part of that. And lastly, let's see. Oh, something good that year. The IRS announced in March of that year that the deadline for tax day was going to be moved. It wasn't going to be April in last year. It was moved up to May. So May 17th, you got a little extension to file your tax there.
I remember that helped me out quite a bit. I was happy with that. We do have some celebrity deaths. These are just a handful of our dear celebrity friends that passed away in 2021. We've got Clarence William III. You'll remember him from Mod Squad. He was 81. Richard Donner, that director of many blockbuster movies, like Superman and 79 and Lethal Weapon, movies like that. He was age 91. Suzanne Douglas, and she was of off-Broadway and TV fame, noted for her Warner Brothers sitcom The Parenthood. She died at 64. Remember that Jackie Mason, that iconic Borscht Belt comedian? Well, he was aged 93 when he passed. And I think it hit a lot of us hard. Norm Macdonald, beloved comedian, and he was on Saturday Night Live. He passed away at age 61.
Okay, so we lost a few folks in 2021, and perhaps there were some entrances into the world that in a couple of decades we'll find out if they become celebrities. So, dust off your old Matinee Minutia archive and find out who joined us then. All right, so Swan Song. It was an independent film, so sort of an art house film. And it didn't place in the box office because it wasn't a commercial release. But if you were one to step out into the world, hopefully with a mask in 2021, you might have gone to the movies and you could have seen in the number one in the box office was Spider-Man No Way Home. When
Oh my goodness.
woo! I got a feather bow on tonight, folks. Tickle me. Tickle me pink, literally. Tom Holland, of course, the Mr. Spidey of late, and Mr. Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, who's playing Doctor Strange these days in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was a crossover. Spider-Man No Way Home brought in $572 million that year.
Lord.
Also in the top of the box office, it was a bang-up year for the comic fans there, because the number two was, and if you read this, you're going to mispronounce it. So trust me, the way this is pronounced is Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Number two brought in $224 million. Now, I'm not familiar with most of the cast. However, it had Simu Liu, Ben Kingsley, and the Grand Dame former Bond girl and everyone's favorite mysterious leading lady on Star Trek Discovery, Michelle Yeoh in Shang-Chi. And again, that was 224 million, number 2. Now, number 3 was Venom, Let There Be Carnage. It was a sequel. It had a subtitle. It had Mr. Tom Hardy, that man who, brushed himself off and started his career over again. Mr. Woody Harrelson joined him in that cast. He was the misunderstood bad guy who came out of hiding. Now, Swan Song, it was an independent film. It was released in August of that year. And based upon middle of the box office, the film that was one better was called Finding You. And bear with me one moment here. I am going to look up Finding You, and through the magic of editing, you're not going to know that I didn't have this out. So let's see. Finding You in 2021 was a film where Shane and Jonathan seem to be stuck in toxic relationships until a chance encounter brings them together with a possibility of hope or happiness. So perhaps another independent film that had a little bit more support from the syndicated movie theaters out there. And let's see here. The film that was just below the rung of middle of the box office was a film called The Card Counter. And similarly, I'm just going to bring up The Card Counter, but I'm sure you could probably guess what that's all about here. Let's see, Card Counter in 2021. And this is a film that had Tiffany Haddish, that seems to be a familiar name, and Willem Dafoe. This film was about an ex-military interrogator turned gambler haunted by the ghosts of his past. That was just below middle of the box office, The Card Counter in 2021. All right, Toppy. So, as we've mentioned before in the past, the Marionette Theater is a place where many splendid things occurred, vaudeville and magicians. And we kind of think of the person, the filmmaker, the director, as being the magician of the film. Tell us a little bit about Mr. Todd Stevens, if you will.
Okay, well, Todd Stevens is a director who tends to make very personal movies, and our selection tonight, Swan Song, is one of them. He's an American film director, writer, and producer. He was raised in Sandusky, Ohio, which, if that sounds familiar, is the location for tonight's movie, actually. He seems to use his hometown in a lot of his movies. You might know him for writing and producing the autobiographical coming out film Edge of 17. That was a movie released in 1998. And he's directed the 2001 film Gypsy, 1983, as well as another gay movie called Another Gay Movie, which was released in 2006. And the follow-up was another gay sequel, Gays Gone Wild. And that premiered at the Frameline Film Festival in San Francisco in 2008. Look, this guy is an award winner. As his movies went throughout the independent film circuit, he won awards from LA Outfest. He won the Seattle Lesbian and Gay Film Festival Award. He won the Torino International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. And he won the Toronto Inside Out Lesbian and Gay Film and Video Festival across a span from 1998 to 2002. So he is known and quite beloved. And this little gift to us that we're going to talk about tonight, Swan Song, is maybe his best. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, so before we continue the discussion about the cast, we're going to go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage. We're going to screen for you the trailer.
Good evening. I'm Mr. Pat, and I'm back.
Good afternoon, residents. Lunch will be served in 5 minutes. Our special item of the day, fruit cocktail.
Miss Scott, you always had beautiful hair. Beautiful.
Patrick Pitzenbarger. It's been years.
I'm retired.
Rita Parker Sloan passed away. Rita specified that you do her hair and makeup for the funeral. The will makes a provision for services rendered.
My client demand high-quality beauty products.
What you looking for?
Perfect powder bleach and Vivante.
Baby, that smack don't stick to nappy heads. Oh my God.
Pat, is it you? You look so athletic.
I'm surprised you still remember me.
Who could forget the Liberace of Sandusky?
I'm supposed to make a dead bitch look human.
Was she a handful?
Oh, a demanding Republican monster.
Sounds like a nightmare.
I adored her. Holy hell, Pat, you're still alive? I used to perform here.
Must have been before my time.
This place was family. Girl, you taught me everything I never wanted to know.
Even though I never really knew you, I want you to know you changed my life.
Well, ain't you just the sweetest thing?
Hit me.
Okay, so we have a boatload of talent that came together to make this film. And among those, of course, in the cast was our leading man, who Entertainment Weekly said after 50 years, Udo Kier has finally landed a leading man role. Mr. Udo Kier played Mr. Pat. And in Mr. Pat fashion here, I'll take a sip of my beverage. Udo Kier was born in Cologne, Germany, which is the largest city of the German western state of the North Rhine-Westphalia, and the fourth most populous city of Germany. It's home of the third tallest church and the tallest cathedral in the world. The hospital where Udo was born was bombed by invading Allied forces moments after his birth. This was back in the 40s, folks. And he and his mother had to be dug out of the rubble. He grew up without a father. In his youth, he was an altar boy and cantor, so that's a person who sings in the church. He moved to London, England at the age of 18 to learn English. So strap in, folks. This is a celebrated history of Mr. Udo Kier. In 1966, Kier was cast in the lead role for the film Road to St. Tropez. An early starring role in Andy Warhol's Frankenstein followed in 1973 and led to a string of art house, low-budget, and mainstream horror films, including a number of vampire-themed pictures. So 'tis the season to be an Udo Kier fan. And this is in German. It's Die Einsteiger in 1985. In 1998, he appeared on the American screens in Blade. And in 1998, he was in Modern Vampires. And in 2000, Shadow of the Vampire, and Dracula 3000 and Blood Rain. So 2 films in 2005. Udo Kier has also become famous for his work with cult directors, including Rainer Werner Fassbinder, Valerian Borowicz, Gus von Sant, Christoph Schlingelseif, and Dario Argento, whose classic Suspiria in 1977 Kier was featured in. He has appeared in almost all of Lars von Trier's movies since '87's film Epidemic. Udo Kier's most famous Hollywood roles include his appearance as Ron Kemp in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective back in '94, and also in Barbed Wire as Curly, who was a NASA flight psychologist. Oh, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. He also played a NASA flight psychologist in Armageddon as the villainous, and then as the villainous Lorenzini in The Adventures of Pinocchio, and the '99 sequel, The New Adventures of Pinocchio. Now, before I get too much further, because there is quite a bit more, I'll try to keep it brief. Many of you might occasionally confuse Udo Kier with another German expatriate, and I know I have, Mr. Terence Stamp, who has appeared in such films as, I want to say, Superman 2, or is it 3, Toppy? Correct.
Well, he was in the first 2 Superman movies.
Mm-hmm. And also later on in the '90s was in one of my favorite films, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. So.
There is a similarity between the two. Also, to be honest, while I was watching Swan Song, I kept thinking I was watching Michael
Fassbinder, or
no, doesn't matter. I've forgotten the name. Continue.
Okay, so let's see here. So he was also in music videos, including Madonna's Deeper and Deeper from the Erotica album. You know, that naughty thing she did that had a coffee table book. He was in I guess they were a grunge band, Korn. It's called Make Me Bad, and Eve's Let Me Blow Your Mind. A lot of other things here. Okay, moving forward, he has also worked extensively as a voice actor, and is starring as the psychic Yuri, as well as the voice in the Psychors and Command and Conquer Red Alert 2 and its expansion Yuri's Revenge. He also voiced the Music Master in Justice League, and Herbert Ziegler in The Batman, the more recent film, and Ivan Bond in Metropia. So these are a lot of sort of genre films. If you're into horror films, you've probably seen Udo Kier quite a bit. He gets around. And he was also Professor Pericles, as well as a shadowy figure in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Mr. Toad in Beware the Batman. I'm sure these are animated films. Warden in Axe Cop. Head Vampire in Major Lazer, and Dylan Beekler's backpack in Golan the Insatiable, and Dr. Peter Straub in the Call of Duty World War II. Now, if any of you look up interviews with Udo Kier, especially for this film, Swan Song, he'll tell you he's done perhaps 200 films, and 100 or so of them are bad. 50 of them you could watch with a good glass of wine.
Okay.
But Kier is gay and has been open about his sexuality his entire life. No one has ever asked me about my sexuality. Maybe it was obvious, but it didn't make any difference, because all that mattered was the role I was playing. As long as I did a good job on the part, no one cared about my sexuality. And Mr. Udo Kier moved to the States, and he joins us from Palm Springs when he steps out to do a film. He's in Palm Springs these days, and he moved there back in '91. So, Toppy, we are at about that halfway mark. I thought I'd entertain you folks here. Let me drag out some music. We're gonna step on over to the snack bar and drink something blue, because that's what I'm having tonight. Gertie, you got any more of that blue stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is a little gem that I dug up on the internet, and it's a interviewer called Pride Source. This was during a film festival in 2021, and they're interviewing Udo Kier and Michael Urie, who played the grandson in tonight's film Swan Song.
Udo, Michael, hi. It's nice to meet you both virtually. I'm very happy that you joined me today. Swan Song is a beautifully moving love letter to generations of older, unabashedly queer people who paved the way for younger generations of queer people, in particular, like the queenier men who just let their freak flags fly. I thought I would start by asking you what made you both say yes to this project.
The importance about this film is the different generation of my generation and the going back there and people don't recognize me anymore. And also, you know, in the old days, when you went to a gay bar, you were looking left and right if nobody would see you from your neighbors where you're going. And now they're holding hands at Appleby. So that is okay. I mean, you see, I'm from Germany, and in Germany, there were even a paragraph called 175 when I grew up. And if two men lived together and the neighbors were hearing some erotic noises, they could call the police and the people were arrested and put in jail. And, you know, I think it's so wonderful in relative short time that now even two men or two women can get married and adopt children, and it's amazing. So there's a totally, and that is for me was the film, the different generation of going back, and then the opportunity that the lawyer offers me $25,000 to do the hair of a woman who died.
What's so beautiful, I think, about Mr. Pat, and I think the way in which I relate to Mr. Pat is that this, even though now it's 2021, queer people are accepted. I can walk down the street holding hands with my partner, and I don't feel any shame anymore or any danger. And I actually feel proud to do that. I feel that even though we're legal, we're allowed to marry, we're allowed to have kids, we have full protections under the law for the most part. I can blend in, I can assimilate, and I don't want to. And I think that is something that that the older generation, when marriage equality became a thing and when people started getting married, I know people in the older generation who thought, why would we need that? We've been fine without that. We don't want to be like straight people. We don't want to get married. And of course, it's two different things. It's the right to be married versus the need to be married. And also it's that I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud to be different and I don't need to assimilate. I can be someone else. And I think that I want to always have a little bit of Mr. Pat. I don't want to walk down the street and have people think that's a straight person. I want people to know. I want people to in the same way that the same way
you have to get a green suit. Get a green suit.
Okay, so continuing on with the cast there, Toppy, we have another person entering in the scene here, and she's a big ally in the LGBTQ community. Tell us a little bit about Jennifer Coolidge. Who did she play in this film?
Dee Dee Dale, key role in the movie. You know this lady from more than 51 movies she's been in, believe it or not. To this date, you've seen her in films like A Cinderella Story, Robots, Date Movie, American Dreams, Soul Men, Austinland, Single All the Way. So she's been in a lot of the on television. You would have seen her in the sitcom Joey for 2 years, 2004 to 2006. She was Betty in the ABC family teen drama series The Secret Life of the American Teenager from 2008 to 2012. She was Zofia or Sophie Kaczynski in the CBS sitcom Two Broke Girls. And she was Tanya McQuoid in the HBO anthology series The White Lotus in 2021. And that earned her a lot of critical acclaim. And she won the Primetime Emmy Award and a Critics' Choice Television Award for that role. Not to mention, apparently, Golden Globe Award and the Screen Actors Guild Award. So, wow. Most recently, you would have seen her in The Watcher on Netflix. So she's been around for a long time and plays a key role. A great supporting role here for her in this movie, DJ.
Let me catch up here. Sorry. Okay. Yes. And, Coolidge also has worked in a lot of charities, including her activism has been supporting AIDS assistance and animal rights. And she's known for her support of the community, widely considered to be a gay icon. Now, of course, at least one of those prior films that were mentioned in her work were with Mr. Todd Stevens. So she's probably quite well acquainted. Now, I personally remember the first time I saw Jennifer Coolidge, and it was in a 2001 film. This had Chris Rock and Eugene Levy, who is one of those many people who's been a actor that worked with Christopher Guest and a member of the Groundlings, I do believe, Mr. Eugene Levy. Jennifer Coolidge was in this film called Down to Earth, and it was about after dying before his time, an aspiring Black comic gets a second shot at life by being placed in the body of a wealthy white businessman. And Jennifer Coolidge got to play the young woman who was married to the older man, probably for his money. All right. So, one of the other folks who was a shining star, a jewel in the crown, because this film had jewels. I mean, Mr. Pat, he was sort of an affectation of Liberace. One of the things that Mr. Pat says in the film, in the opening, is that he's back and he shows off the rings. Now, in an interview, he mentions, Udo Kier mentions that was inspired by Liberace when he first opened at his residency in Las Vegas and said, "Do you paid for these?" But Linda Evans certainly was a jewel in the crown of this film. And she played Rita, the dearly departed old friend. And Miss Linda Evans, she was born in Hartford, Connecticut. And she has personified beauty and grace to American television viewers for over 5 decades. From her role as Audra Barkley and daughter of the Old West on the Big Valley on ABC from 65 to 69, and to the glamorous Crystal Carrington, the heyday of the cat fights on evening television on Dynasty. They're on ABC also from 81 to 89. And then she came out of, I guess, perhaps semi-retirement in 2004 for a reality show called Hell's Kitchen. And it's the British competitive reality cooking show. She won in 2009. Now, Linda became one of the most celebrated female television stars of the 80s for her role as Crystal, wife of an oil multimillionaire, played by John Forsythe, and good girl counterpart to Joan Collins as evil Alexis, ergo the cat fights. Now, Linda was nominated 5 times for the Golden Globe Awards for Best Actress in a TV drama series every year from 82 to 86. She won in 82, sharing the honor with Barbara Bel Geddes, who I remember as the dear sweet mama of J.R. Ewing on Dallas. And that was the rival primetime television show at the time, Dallas. Now, Linda won 5 People's Choice Awards as favorite actress in a drama series in 82, 83, 84, 85, and 86, so 4 years running.
Wow.
Nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series in 83. For her contribution to the television industry, Linda has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So just some background information. At 14, Linda was encouraged to take drama classes to overcome her shyness. And at 15, she joined a friend who was auditioning for a television commercial, and she got the part. So moving on here, after Dynasty, Linda decided there was something more to life than Hollywood and moved to the Pacific Northwest. So that's where she's been hiding. She began an extraordinary journey of self-discovery. But she returned to performing, frequently starring in the stage play Legends and winning the Hell's Kitchen competition while working under Michelin star chef Marco Pierre White. Linda's often lavish and luxurious life has rivaled Crystal Carrington's. She has dined with queens and presidents and been romanced by the rich and famous. And today, what Linda treasures most is the wisdom she has gained along the way, and perhaps her privacy. She's been married, I think, twice, and unbeknownst to all, she hasn't tied the knot again since the late 70s.
Okay, I want to get this out of the way right away.
Mhm.
DJ, at a point in this movie, the grandson of Rita is going through photos of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones that we get a close-up of, okay, this is what I think I saw. I saw Linda Evans with her co-star from Dynasty. What's his face? What's his face? What's the actor's name?
Ron Forsythe?
Yes. I swear to God, as possibly a nod to that or whatever, it was a close-up of the photo, and I swear it was Linda Evans and John Forsythe. And he said, this was marriage number 2 or whatever. Did you catch that? Did I just make that up? Did that really happen?
No, I'm pretty sure you're right. And it's kind of cute because they just play into it with the conversation there. The grandson said that grandma picked out all of her photos for the memorial.
Well, this was a choice that you made, DJ. Where'd you run across this? How'd you hear about it? What's your history with this?
Okay, well, I learned about Swan Song just before our season 4 ended for the summer. This was a film that was actually promoted during Pride Month, June, on the service I found it on, Hulu. And, as Udo Kier is an proud actor of many a film with a celebrated career, it also felt certain, apropos that we discuss this during October, his birth month. But, this is one of those films I feel that it's the journey that you have to experience as you watch it. This is not just simply a sad film or a happy film. You need to watch this film to live through the experiences of the characters. And I feel that perhaps because through some reading, I basically have determined that the director, Todd Stevens, is probably somewhere in his late 50s to early 60s. So he lived through the 80s and this experience. And certainly it should be noted also that Swan Song is based upon true story. There was a real Pat Pitzenberger who was a celebrated hairstylist in Sandusky, Ohio. So this is based loosely on his life. And I feel that this is an important film for queer culture because as we move forward in the 21st century, we're no longer living in that era when having HIV or AIDS was a death sentence. So people forget we lost many a loved one during this time. We have a generation of people who weren't here to share their experience and their stories. in the gay community, unless you're one who believes that you maybe deserve to be married, deserve to be happy, because it is a matter of psychology. We grow up understanding that we're different, and until you make your first gay friend or you come out to your first ally, you question on whether or not you're going to achieve the same things that other people in your life are destined for. So, this is an important film because the director is taking us down the path of the way that life used to be through Mr. Pat. He lost the most loved person in his life, and then the person who was his, or at least he thought was his closest friend, didn't even come to the funeral.
Mm. So for a whole variety of very personal reasons that we just can't even begin to go into, this movie really affected me. And I knew a Mr. Pat in real life, and he was a dear, dear, dear friend. And I can't go into it all, but it played so real for me, and Udo's performance played so real. In this movie, it is filled with close-ups of Udo Kier's face. I'm not just talking close-ups, but I mean right up to his face. It's filled with his face because that's all he needed to portray everything. The tiniest expression, you knew he was either pleased or displeased. You knew he was either amused or very unhappy. This is such a nuanced performance that it's staggering. And all the director needed was to just put that camera on his face. You didn't need dialogue. And you knew what he was thinking. Absolutely phenomenal.
Oh yes, and through interviews, I've learned that because I'll be honest, this is really the only film that I've knowingly watched with Udo Kier in it. Now, of course, this is one of the only times that he's played a leading role, but I for the most part I'm a stranger to his body of work, and one of the things that was said in an interview was he doesn't believe in rehearsing. He also went to great measures to not introduce himself to certain environments, like spoilers for those of you who, of course, may not have seen this. It is hard to come by because it's an independent film, but I guarantee you that if you enjoy queer cinema, this is a film that's a necessary watch. It's not going to be a happy, you know, feel good about your life movie, but it is going to feel relevant because, as Toppy said, he knew someone like Mr. Pat. Many people have known people like Mr. Pat. And until films like this are made, those are stories that may not get passed down. So I'm trying to think of where I was going to go with that there. But Udo Kier says that he's not one to rehearse. And there's a scene in the film where Mr. Pat goes back to his hometown, and he goes to the cemetery, which is where his partner, his lover of many years, was laid to rest. He died from AIDS, and he hasn't been to the cemetery since the funeral. Udo Kier volunteered in the interviews that he refused to go into the cemetery and see the headstone until they were ready to film the scene, because his art is the experience of the introduction. He wants you to see his reaction to that entry of the environment and the elements. So
Yeah, and what a scene it was, because with absolutely no dialogue, again, we see the character Udo plays, Pat, caressing the headstone, ferociously hugging the headstone, putting his head on the headstone, crying. And we know, no dialogue whatsoever, how much his lover meant to him. And he passed of AIDS. And in a scene that was repeated by the thousands back then, his lover didn't have a will. And so what happened to the estate and his belongings and everything? Well, some nephew got it. Patrick didn't get anything. He was destitute. He lost the home, he lost the business, he lost everything because some nephew somewhere came out of the woodwork as the last surviving relative, got everything.
Yeah.
And you know, we come to know Pat in a nursing home, you know, one of those horrid institutional awful places that we stuff old people into.
But you know, despite the vivid and harsh realities that were fraught in this film, there are some very poignant moments that tell you the kind of person Pat was just by virtue of his service to the community as a hairstylist. He had a role in helping people feel good about himself. And one of those scenes is right there in the nursing home. There's a woman in a wheelchair in the stairwell, and she's lost, well, perhaps she's lost the ability to speak because she doesn't speak in her scenes, but he talks to her and he does her hair in the stairwell, and she's in a couple of scenes, but until you listen to the conversation he's having as she's working on her hair, you may not pick up, which I did in later viewings, that this may have been one of his old clients before he became retired. Because he remembered
Okay.
her, and he said to her by name, he says, "Miss Gertie has always had beautiful hair."
Oh, you're so right. I did not pick up on that, DJ, but that occurs to me. Yes, absolutely. That was what they were indicating. There's another scene later on when Pat has walked the distance to this town to go to the funeral, and he meets a lot of people along the way. And one of them is a lady that she recognizes him, and she says, "I know you. When I was 16, you made me up as a blonde and blah, 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 blah." And she tells this whole story. And he pretends that he remembers her. And over the course of the scene, you know, she reveals, she tells him, "You really made me feel beautiful." And it was important to her. And finally he remembers her and tells a list of things to prove it. The name of your son is blah blah, and that year was yada yada. And he says, "Yeah, it's all up here. It's all up in my head. It takes a little while to come down, but it meant something to her." And the grandson of the woman who's being memorialized, he reveals at the end, "You know, I never met you, but because of the stories my grandmother told about you, I feel like I know you. And I want to tell you that you changed my life." Because he was gay and he was having a bad time. And his grandmother, when he came out to her, told her all about her good friend, Pat. And this is a revelation to Pat, because he came to believe that Pat didn't think much of him.
Mm-hmm.
and that she didn't come to his lover's funeral, and he was rather bitter. In fact, he wasn't going to do her makeup and hair at all. It took a lot of convincing, and he gave up several times during the course of this movie. He ran away from it, in fact, but finally he did it out of respect. And then at the end, there's this beautiful moment where the grandson reveals, no, she'd been talking about him all along, and he knew all about him.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing about him and how out and flamboyant and that he had a lover and he had this life and it was a good life, completely changed his whole idea of what he could be and how he could be gay in the world. So that's a really key point in the movie. We're getting close to the end, DJ, and I got to tell you, one of the best things that happens from beginning to end of this movie is that Pat is a kleptomaniac. All right. And they just, the movie doesn't comment on it. We just see him, we see that it's out of necessity. He doesn't have any money. He's got to get these beauty supplies, but he steals a whole lot of stuff in this movie, including he just decides to take, one of those scooters. I don't know where he just, he doesn't think anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful moment at the end that brings it all through the whole movie, all of his steal, is he's taken the shoes of the woman he's just made up. And he happens to die.
Spoiler.
Right? Yeah, he dies shortly after making this woman up.
Mm-hmm.
And as the medics take him out, the grandson looks down and he sees that he's wearing her grandmother's shoes, the shoes she was wearing in her coffin. And he just smiles and he goes, you just see on his face, yep, that's Pat. And he just smiles. What a beautiful, oh my God.
And and it's sort of a callback too, in the sense, because there's a scene earlier in the film when he's in the, one of the only remaining gay bars in town, and he says to the guy across, the bartender, he's talking about Rita. And the guy's like, she sounds like a nightmare. He goes, I adored her. And he's like, she had great taste in shoes.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, there are so many wonderful moments in this movie and so many funny moments too, in a very poignant tale that is so well done. Can't recommend this movie enough.
And I would say that it starts right from the beginning with Mr. Pat's personality, because in the same way that he stole the scooter, there's a moment in the nursing home where he leaves his room for the day. He puts up his little smiley sign on the door to let him know he's not sleeping anymore. And one of the nurses says to him, well, good to see you up and walking and whatever. And as soon as she says that, turns her back, he goes ahead and takes the nearest wheelchair just to kind of flipper the bird in a way. It's like, oh yeah, I'm getting up and around all right. I'm just going to take this chair here off your hands.
Right. And of course, through much of the movie, he's walking. He leaves the nursing home on foot and walks to this town where he's got to, make this woman up. And it's a long damn walk. And he does it. Oh goodness, boy, I'm so glad I saw this movie. It was one of those movies that's devastating when you watch it, but so incredibly well done.
And I would put it on my list of necessary watch films, because sure, you might be in a certain mood and you want to see a movie that's happy or fun or whatever, but it's a lesson. You sit through this film to experience someone's life, just like films like Titanic. You know how it's going to end. And Schindler's List. Yes, I've watched Schindler's List. Will I watch it again? Maybe not, but it was an important watch because it passed on a story and you experiencing something possibly not from your own life.
Yeah. By the way, in your research, did you find out how they got Linda Evans or why she was interested in basically portraying a corpse? I mean, seriously, what? Obviously, there was something she saw in this movie that made her think, I've got to do this. And possibly there was something the director, maybe he was a super fan of Dynasty. I don't know.
I don't have the absolute answer, but I can only venture to guess because as they discussed the casting in some of the interviews, basically it seemed like some of the pieces started coming together once they landed certain roles, like getting Udo Kier as the lead. So I believe just simply by virtue of Udo glowing on the interviews about getting a chance to work with Linda Evans, that it might have been kismet, that they might have admired each other's careers, and once he goes on the cast, she was probably coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. By the way, your hubby Billy posted a photo of a very young Udo Kira. Did you see it? Because you've got to scroll back up and take a look.
Yes, he looks a little like Kevin Sorbo, although probably less conservative.
Well, all I can say is what a beautiful man. He was, and a very handsome man he remains to this day. But boy, I'll tell you.
And we have a copy of Flesh for Frankenstein, Andy Warhol's film in 3D, folks, because well, we like to import things, and doesn't matter what language it was released in. If it has an English track on it, it's as good as an American film. So that's the well-kept secret of movie lovers. Just get it overseas, and if it's in English, you can have it for yourself. Doesn't matter if it was released here. Anyways, so we are out here at the lobby, Toppy, and we're at that part of the show where we talk about other films that you might enjoy if Swan Song is in your wheelhouse. Maybe you haven't seen Swan Song, but you like films of that nature. So this is our snack tray. And I had a change of heart. I decided on something else. So the film that I am going to recommend is also a film by Mr. Todd Stevens, the director of Swan Song. This is actually, I believe, his first film. It came out in '98. And it was a very important film for myself because in those days I was just newly out of the nest. But Edge of 17 from 1998, the story is a teenager copes with his sexuality on the last day of school in 1984. It shows him coping with being gay and being with friends. And inevitably, he ends up sneaking out at night, going to the club and meeting up with a young college guy, possibly his first boyfriend. But Edge of 17, a '98 film by Todd Stevens, also introduces us to the wonder that is comic Leah DeLaria in one of her first films, Edge of 17 from '98.
Very nice. So my choice, if you liked Swan Song, is a movie that it made me think of another little quiet gem of a movie. This one was made in 1999, and it's called The Straight Story. And it's about an old man who makes a long journey, not on foot this time, but he rides a lawnmower. And he's going to visit his brother who is terminally ill, very ill, and he wants to speak to him before he dies. after years of them being estranged, and he makes this journey on a lawnmower and meets people along the way, finally gets to his brother, and we see them together after years of being apart. It stars Richard Farnsworth and Sissy Spacek, and it's directed, believe it or not, by David Lynch. And you will not find a strange, weird Eraserhead gestalt to this movie. It is a finely directed, extremely poignant movie, right along the lines of Swan Song. And if you like Swan Song, you'll love The Straight Story from 1999.
Okay, so we've got some late 90s recommendations along the pike here. And before we say good night, Toppy, and tell folks what's coming up next, please let us know who joined us tonight in the chat room.
All right, we just got an appearance by Maren Gertz. She confesses she got here late, but she says she loves this movie that we talked about tonight. We also had your hubby Billy, Star Sage, and we had Lamont Cranston, and we have our pal always here every week, Tommy Hash Browns. And we thank all of you for coming by and being part of the live show. Oh, and we had the ever mysterious Crownhaven. As well. So thank you all.
Because, aside from being here in the chat room, which you can join us at our Discord, go to matineeminutia.com and click on that little link there that looks like a game controller. It might also look like a masked man, but it says Discord. And of course, you can go to YouTube. There's a little linky boo on our webpage. You could see us in our splendor, because sometimes we play dress up and ain't that fun. But you can also listen to us on the stream, which is how the mysterious Crownhaven has been listening out in the wings here tonight.
All right. Hey, DJ, get our magic gumball machine, because we got to find out what we're doing next time.
All right. We're going to find those coins. The magician left here because, this person was almost as bad a klepto as Udo Kier.
Uh-huh.
Oh, this one, it's glowing. I think that means something special. It's a listener request.
Oh, it is indeed. Well, next time on Matinee Minutia, it's a movie by the director of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's an early 80s comedy drama. It stars Robin Williams and Mary Beth Hart. It's about a struggling young writer who finds his life work dominated by his a struggling young writer finds his life and work dominated by his unfaithful wife and his radical feminist mother, whose best-selling manifesto turns her into a cultural icon. Next time, by listener request, The World According to Garp.
Oh, well, and it should be noted that Robin Williams did have fun with his films. So, this wasn't made to be a box office smash. I'm sure he probably just did it because it sounded like fun. And,
I don't know. It was a bestseller, and I'm sure they wanted it to be a box office smash.
Oh, and if you're looking under the cracks or the carpet here, perhaps if you join our Facebook group, look for Matinee Minutia and join our Facebook group, you might occasionally get an opportunity to somehow see some of these movies that aren't on streaming. Because here at Chateau Star Sage, we have a library that rivals that of Congress, or the Library of Congress, one of those two. Okay, mouthful. So bottoms up, folks. Hats off, not really, to our celebrated folks like Mr. Pat and all those great queer filmmakers out there. All right, Toppy. In the ways of the old days of radio, would you do us a favor and say good night in that special way?
Good night, Gracie.
Thank you for listening to Matinee Minutia.
Our show streams live on the first and third Friday of the month.
Go to univazpods.net. Click the tower for audio. Enter Discord for chat.
You can find our show anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Visit our webpage at matineeminutia.com.
Tweet us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia.
Find our group on Facebook.
Have an idea for a show? Or why not let us know how we're doing?
Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com.
Show's Gone Wild with Matt and Tom.
Speak up.
The Smellcast by Toppy Smelly.
Be heard.
Tastes like burning with Tim and James.
Unique voices in podcasting.
The Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti.
univazpods.net.
And for those of you who may not have been aware, part of the soundtrack of Swan Song, the original music in it there anyways, was made by members, or at least one member, of the B-52s. Another example of queer artists. So check that out. Look for the soundtrack. It's out there in various places, playlists mostly. I don't think an actual official soundtrack came out, but thanks for joining us. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Let's see. Stop recording.